Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I know this isn't really the kind of video I would normally make, but this movie in particular caught my attention and I just kind of wanted to make my own thoughts on video on it and just kind of get my opinion out there. Now look, I'm not going to pretend like I know everything there is to know about filmmaking because I don't. I've never made a movie. I've never been involved with making a movie. I don't know anything about it. I watch a few movie critics on YouTube, but that doesn't mean I know anything about filmmaking, so I'm not going to pretend like I do know anything. I just kind of wanted to talk about this movie in particular because it really caught my attention, and as a big music guy, I just wanted to see it and I wanted to talk about it. So I just got back from the theater after seeing it a second time. And I'll go ahead and say this right now. There may be some mild spoilers to potential major spoilers, but if anybody, if you are an Elvis fan, then you'll already know most of the shit that I'm talking about. But if you want to go in completely blind and you don't want to know anything, then I suggest clicking off the video now. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into Elvis. This is the latest biopic from Baz Luhrmann, and it stars Austin Butler as Elvis Presley and Tom Hanks as Colonel Tom Parker. A whole very, very big, talented cast, and it is basically just about Elvis's life. It's about his legacy, how he grew to fame, how he suffered financially from Tom Parker's exploitation of him, and that's really what this central movie is about. It isn't really so much about Elvis the legend. While the legend is there, and you can see kind of how just big of a figure he is throughout the movie, it's more so about him as a human being and how he was kind of a victim of being financially exploited by Tom Parker. And I actually thought that was a pretty good take. That's something we never really heard a lot about, or at least growing up listening to Elvis, the most I grew up with was like Jailhouse Rock and Blue Christmas, but I didn't really hear that much about that side of Elvis's life growing up, and of course listening to his music and like doing my fair bit of research, nothing I really heard a whole lot about his life, growing up. So seeing this in like a film adaptation, I thought was pretty good, and I thought it was pretty well put together. Let's go ahead and address the two elephants in the room, I should say, and I'll go ahead and talk about Austin Butler as Elvis Presley. He really sells the fact that in like a live action adaptation of, or like a biopic of Elvis, this dude embodied Elvis. He had to fully dedicate himself 100% to the role, and that's exactly what he did. He became Elvis Presley in this, and there's just no way to deny that because he did. I watched some interviews with Austin Butler, and I want to say it was about roughly 2 to 3 years. I could be wrong on that time frame, but for like 2 to 3 years, he was just listening to interviews, going through his entire catalog, studying his dance moves, and just everything about Elvis. He would study the way he talked. He's trained his singing voice to become like Elvis. He just captured the role really, really well. He sells you on the fact that he is Elvis Presley, and he did a phenomenal job in this movie. So if the Academy knows what's best for film, nominate this man for an Oscar. Please do, because he's just absolutely wonderful in the role. Now let's go ahead and address Tom Hanks. I know some people are indifferent about Tom Hanks. Now, it's hard to deny that Tom Hanks is a very, very skilled actor. We all know he's very versatile, but he's very, very skilled as an actor. One of the best to ever live. I mean, he's fucking Woody from Toy Story. He was in Saving Private Ryan, Castaway. He's been in some really, really big hits. So whenever he was cast for this, I was like, that's interesting to see him as Tom Parker, and especially like with the fat prosthetics. It was a weird thing for me to see. I never expected, and especially his accent coming out too. I know people were really indifferent about that, but I didn't really mind it so much since I never really heard what Tom Parker, or like the actual Tom Parker, actually sounded like. Or no, I never really knew him as a human being, but he sells you on the fact that he is like a fucking manipulative dickhole, and he sells you on the fact that he's just using Elvis for financial gain. He sells you on that. He plays a really good asshole in this movie. I didn't really care too much about his accent. It didn't really bother me that much. It's just nothing I ever really expected out of Tom Hanks. So I thought he was fine in the movie. I'd say he was good. He was good in the movie. I don't think he was, as bad as people were really saying. And of course, it's a biopic. This is going more into my negatives because I mean I like the way that the movie looks. I think aesthetically it looks great. It's shot very well. Austin Butler and Tom Hanks were obviously great. And of course, Austin's dancing, his singing, bringing Elvis to life in this movie was fucking awesome. But going more into my negatives, I'm going to start with the soundtrack choices, because I think I speak for mostly everybody when I say, what the fuck were the soundtrack choices? I mean, they had Doja Cat on a song, they had a Denzel Curry song in here, and then even during the credits, they had Eminem and CeeLo Green on a track. And I was like, what the fuck? I mean, he's walking on, there's a scene where Elvis is walking in Beale Street, and Doja Cat, there's a fucking Doja Cat song from the soundtrack playing, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? Why? It's fucking Beale Street in the 50s. Blues was popping at this time. Why not play some B.B. King? Or, some fucking Buddy Guy or something like that? Why not? Why would you not play any Beale Street blues? Or at least some Elvis songs that were around at that time. That's alright. Or, fucking Blue Suede Shoes or anything like that. Why not just play any Elvis songs? And, I mean, another thing with the soundtrack choice, whenever he gets drafted in, or not drafted, but he goes into the army and he's over in Germany, it's 59, he meets Priscilla. Why are they not playing Elvis's version of Can't Help Falling in Love? They're not playing his version. I'm sure, I mean, I don't know who made the version, but I don't imagine who did as a bad artist at all. I'm sure she's a fine singer, but it's just more of it's played in the minor key, I think, so it's made to sound more sad and kind of emotional, when his original version was, I think, supposed to be more in the major key, so it sounded happier, even though it was a very low-toned, softer love song. And that's exactly what the new version is, but it's more depressing. His was happier, I think, and this one's just more depressing. I didn't care for it. I'm sorry, but I did not like their it's not, well, the non-Elvis version of Can't Help Falling in Love used in this movie. I didn't like it. And there's also a scene where he's having an argument with his parents, and he leaves to go to Beale Street, and there's a Denzel Curry song playing while he's over in Beale Street again, and he's going to visit B.B. King at a music venue, and I just don't get it. I don't know what the fuck these soundtrack choices were, but they didn't fit. It's it's not accurate to the time period, and I understand biopics, they're gonna change things, but I didn't think they would go quite that far. You know what I'm saying? I mean, obviously the timeline doesn't really add up. Of course, there was no Jailhouse Rock before he went to the army, which, of course, that's a big thing. He made Jailhouse Rock, and he was huge with Jailhouse Rock before he went to the army. I'm not very familiar with, the time period between when he became a movie star and went to the army. I don't know if he was a movie star before or after he went to the army. That I'm not very clear on. So it could be right, it could be wrong, I don't know. But I just know that Jailhouse Rock was huge before he went to the army. So why they didn't play that, at least before he went to the army, I have no idea. But I would say, aside from maybe those issues, the movie was fine. I enjoyed it. Well, actually, no, the one thing I actually did not mention was the first, half of this movie. It feels like the years as it's progressing through Elvis's stardom before he makes it into the army to meet Priscilla, and then it slows down with the movie stuff. I think it went by too fast. We didn't get enough of Elvis on stage. We didn't get enough of his music. We didn't get enough of him in the studio. It just wasn't, there wasn't enough of Elvis the musician, really, is what I wanted more out of this movie. We didn't get enough of that. And I think that's my main disappointment with this movie, was that we didn't get enough of him musically. We got more of him as a person, of course. Which, I mean, is fine. I didn't mind, seeing the financial exploitation and seeing, him grow to stardom. I just wanted to see some more scenes of him, in the studio, coming together with a song. Or, him recording some hits. Or, playing some songs live, like an actual fucking concert scene where he plays one or two songs in entirety. That would be great. I mean, there is a song where he plays Trouble in its entirety, but, I wanted to see more of, Jailhouse Rock or Blue Suede Shoes. Something. Anything. I don't think we got nearly enough of that as we should have gotten, but that's just my opinion. But aside from those, I think the movie worked fine. I think it was pretty enjoyable. Austin Butler hit it out of the park as Elvis Presley. Tom Hanks was good in the movie. everybody just did a stellar job. I think this is probably Baz Luhrmann's best movie to date. His Great Gatsby movie, that didn't work out. That was fucking horrible. But luckily he had this movie up his sleeve. I'm really, really glad that he was able to pull this off. And I think it was very faithful to the or somewhat faithful to the character, not character. Oh, that's gonna sound bad. But to the actual legend that is Elvis Presley. I thought it was a fantastic movie. If you guys want to go and see it, I definitely check it out. If I had to rate it, I would probably give it an 8 out of 10. I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10. This is a very, very strong movie. Really, really great actors. Really, really great story that kept me enthralled through it. It's in 2.5-hour runtime. I think you guys should check it out. I think it's actually a pretty good movie that's worth seeing in theaters. And if you want to, I would even suggest buying the Blu-ray. It's pretty fucking good. So I think that's going to do it from me. Obviously, being a fan of Elvis, I was really intrigued to see this movie because I didn't mention this, but I did grow up on Elvis. I listened to Jailhouse Rock. Blue Christmas was my childhood Christmas song. That's like all I would listen to anytime I was a kid, and then we were putting on Christmas music. Blue Christmas all fucking day. That's all I really. I mean, I grew up loving Elvis. I mean, what can I say? My grandma did too, and whenever she passed away, I inherited some Elvis knickknacks. I got an old Elvis telephone and a '68 special action figure, which I thought was really, really cool. And there's even some guitar plates that I don't have. I need to go over somewhere and actually collect them. But to say that this movie got my attention and that was kind of special to me would be quite an understatement because I really wanted this movie to be good. And it was. I'm very, very glad that it was. So if you are a fan of Elvis, if this is something that would be special to you, or if you know somebody that would be that this would be special to, tell them to check it out or go check it out. You know, because honestly, you don't even have to be a fan of Elvis to take away something for this movie. Jeremy Johns said it best, it's a cautionary tale. So there are just slimy scumbag snakes in the music industry that are still exploiting people to this day. So be careful who you interact with. That's basically the message of this movie. So that's going to do it for me. I know I keep saying that, but really, this time, that's going to do it for me. If you guys go and see Elvis, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content. That is going to do it for me. I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.